October 24th, 1995, 12:20 a.m., Prairie Village, Kansas. A 911 call comes in from an upscale neighborhood where homes cost upwards of $500,000, where doctors and lawyers and executives raise their families behind white picket fences and well-manicured lawns. The kind of neighborhood where nothing bad is supposed to happen. Someone dials. The line connects. Dispatchers can hear breathing. Whoever called is there, on the other end of the line. But the caller doesn't speak, just silence. Heavy, terrifying silence. Then click. The line goes dead. Dispatch sends a police cruiser to investigate. It's probably nothing. A kid playing with a phone, a butt dial, an accident. 7 minutes later, flames are shooting 30 feet into the night sky from a 6-bedroom Tudor mansion. The fire is so hot that firefighters can't get close. The heat is melting vinyl siding on houses across the street. Windows in neighboring homes are cracking from the intensity. Neighbors watch in horror as the beautiful home, the kind that represents success and the American dream, the kind you point to and say, "That's the goal," becomes an inferno that lights up the entire block. When firefighters finally arrive, they find a woman standing outside in her nightgown, remarkably calm, too calm. Her nightgown and bathrobe show signs of burning, but she's not panicking. She's not crying. She's just standing there. Next to her, a 10-year-old girl is screaming, begging them to save her brother and sister, who are still trapped inside. The girl is hysterical, trying to run back toward the house, being physically restrained. The woman, the mother, she's just watching. Inside that burning house, 2 children are being eliminated. Not by accident, not by a faulty wire or a forgotten candle, but by their own mother, who is standing outside watching it happen with an eerie, unsettling calm that will haunt first responders for decades. This is the story of Dr. Deborah Green, a brilliant physician with an IQ over 160, a woman who could have cured diseases, a mother of 3, a woman who seemed to have everything: money, education, beautiful children, a prestigious career, and how she destroyed it all with fire and poison in a revenge plot so calculated, so methodical, so cold-blooded, that it still haunts investigators decades later. Let's go back. Because this didn't start with a fire. It started with what looked like a perfect love story. University of Kansas Medical School. 2 brilliant students meet. Michael Farrar and Deborah Green. Both near genius level intelligence, both ambitious, both destined for prestigious medical careers. They fell hard and fast. Within a year, they were married. And for a while, it actually was perfect. Michael specialized in cardiology. Deborah chose oncology and hematology. Think about that for a second. She specialized in treating cancer and blood disorders. Saving lives was literally her job. Between 1982 and 1988, they had 3 children: Timothy, Kate, and Kelly. They bought a mansion. Michael's cardiology practice was thriving. They had money, status, beautiful kids. From the outside, they were living the dream. But inside that house, cracks were forming. Deep cracks that would eventually become chasms. Michael's practice was demanding. He worked long hours, saved hearts, but was rarely home to take care of his own family's emotional needs. Deborah gave up her medical practice in 1992 to focus on raising the kids. And something in her started to break. The isolation, the resentment, watching her brilliant medical career slip away while Michael's flourished. She started gaining weight, started drinking, not a little wine with dinner drinking. We're talking about bottles, multiple bottles, the kind of drinking that changes who you are. Her whole identity had been built on two things: being a doctor and being a wife and mother. She'd already sacrificed one. Now the other was crumbling. Michael was pulling away emotionally. They fought constantly. Accusations of affairs flew back and forth. The perfect couple facade was disintegrating. The couple decides to try to save their marriage by going on a school trip to Peru with their son, Tim. Machu Picchu, the Amazon River, exotic locations where they hoped to rediscover what they'd lost. Instead, Michael's attention was captured by another woman, a blonde nurse, the mother of another student on the trip. Think about how that must have felt for Deborah. You're trying to save your marriage, and your husband starts an affair right in front of you. In Peru, with your son right there, with other families watching. The betrayal cut deep. When they returned to Kansas, Michael's affair continued. He wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. He started spending nights away from home, coming back late. The signs were obvious. Deborah retreated to a separate bedroom. Her drinking escalated from bad to catastrophic. And in her brilliant, damaged mind, something dark started growing. If she couldn't have Michael, if her family was being taken from her, then maybe nobody should have it. Shortly after returning from Peru, something strange started happening to Michael. Severe diarrhea, violent vomiting, chills that made him shake uncontrollably. The respected cardiologist ended up as a patient in his own hospital. His colleagues ran every test they could think of: tropical parasites, exotic diseases, infections. Nothing explained it. Michael's weight dropped from his normal build to 125 pounds. He looked skeletal. His colleagues were baffled. This was a healthy guy in his prime, and he was literally wasting away before their eyes. The symptoms would appear, hospitalize him, then mysteriously fade. Then they'd come roaring back, over and over. 3 separate hospitalizations, and nobody could figure out what was eliminating him from the inside. But Michael had a theory. A terrible theory he didn't want to believe. As the marriage continued to collapse, Michael moved into his own apartment. But he still came back to the house to see the kids and collect his belongings. During one of these visits, he was going through things, packing up his stuff. And he looked in Deborah's purse. There, hidden among her wallet and keys, were packets of castor beans. The labels clearly warned, poisonous. Michael's medical training kicked in immediately. He rushed to his textbooks, looked up ricin, the deadly toxin found in castor beans. The symptoms listed in the medical literature matched his mysterious illness perfectly: vomiting, diarrhea, nausea, gastrointestinal bleeding, weight loss. Then he found a receipt in her purse. She'd purchased the castor beans 4 days before his symptoms first appeared. Think about that timeline. 4 days before he got sick, his wife bought poison. Michael went to the hospital for specialized testing. Ricin itself leaves the body quickly. That's why doctors hadn't found it. But the antibodies, those stick around. They're proof that your immune system fought off the poison. The tests came back positive. Multiple exposures. Not once, not twice. Multiple times, Deborah had been poisoning her husband. Each time she fed him ricin, his body fought back and created antibodies. It was like a biological record of her attempts to end his life. His own wife, the mother of his children, the woman he'd loved for nearly 2 decades, had been slowly poisoning him with one of the most lethal natural toxins known to medicine. And she almost got away with it. If ricin had worked faster, if Michael had died before finding those castor beans, it would have been chalked up to some mysterious tropical illness from Peru. The perfect crime, executed by a doctor who knew exactly how toxins work. Michael confronted Deborah in a late-night phone call. Imagine that conversation. He's got the receipts. He's got the lab tests. He knows his wife has been trying to end his life. The call was explosive. Michael accused her of attempted ending of his life, demanded she get psychiatric help, called her out on the poisoning. Deborah's response? Defiant, cold. She rejected every accusation. The call ended at midnight. Both of them angry. Both of them hurt. Michael thinking his marriage was over, but at least he'd survived. 1 hour later, at 12:20 a.m., that silent 911 call came in. By 12:27 a.m., fire trucks were racing to the Farrar family home. The firefighters who responded that night had seen a lot. House fires, car fires, commercial building fires, structure collapses, gas explosions. They were seasoned professionals who'd seen tragedy and trauma. But this was different. This was worse. The flames were moving with unnatural speed, consuming the massive 6-bedroom house like it was made of paper, not brick and wood and solid construction. The heat was so intense, they couldn't get close enough to fight it effectively. Their protective gear was designed for extreme temperatures, but this fire was beyond extreme. This was hellfire. The way it burned wasn't right. Experienced arson investigators could tell immediately. Natural fires spread in predictable patterns. They follow fuel sources. They move upward and outward from a single point of origin. This fire was burning in multiple locations simultaneously. That doesn't happen naturally. By the time they could enter the structure, and we're talking minutes, not hours, it was too late for 2 of the 3 children inside. 6-year-old Kelly went in her bedroom from smoke inhalation. She never woke up. The smoke got her first, just fell asleep in her own bed, and never came back. In a way, that was a mercy. She didn't know, didn't feel the flames, didn't understand what was happening. 13-year-old Timothy wasn't so fortunate. Timothy burned, actually burned. The fire caught him while he was still alive and conscious. Want to know the worst part? The part that makes investigators still lose sleep 30 years later? Tim had made it downstairs. He was near the exit. He could have escaped. Firefighters found evidence that he'd made it to the first floor, was feet away from the door. But his mother had told him to stay inside and wait for the fire trucks. Go back upstairs. Stay with your sister. Help will come. So he went back upstairs, followed his mother's instructions like a good kid, obeyed his mother, and died because he was an obedient child who trusted the one person who should have protected him. Think about that for a second. He survived the initial flames. He could have lived. But he trusted his mother. Kate, the 10-year-old, only survived because she didn't follow instructions. She smelled smoke, tried to wake her brother, placed that silent 911 call, then crawled out her bedroom window onto the garage roof and jumped to safety. When firefighters arrived, Deborah was standing outside with Kate. Witnesses said she looked very calm, very cool. Not panicked, not distraught, just calm. While her daughter was screaming for firefighters to save her siblings, Deborah just stood there. Arson investigators knew immediately something was wrong. The burn patterns were too deliberate, too organized. They brought in specially trained dogs. The dogs hid on accelerants throughout the house, not just in one spot, throughout. Someone had systematically poured flammable liquid in multiple locations to ensure maximum destruction. The accelerant trail led directly to Deborah's bedroom door. She'd poured it in the hallways, on Michael's belongings, near the children's rooms, then lit it. But here's where she messed up. She used too much accelerant near her own bedroom door. When she lit it, there was a mini explosion. It caught her bathrobe, singed her hair, left physical evidence on her body that she'd been standing right there when the fire started. Forensic analysis of her bathrobe showed burn marks consistent with starting a fire, not escaping from one. Hair analysis showed microscopic damage from being too close to intense heat. The burn patterns on the carpet and door frames told the story. Her bedroom door was open during the fire's initial stages, not closed like she claimed. The physics of fire spread proved she was lying. Chemical analysis identified the accelerant. Odorless charcoal lighter fluid, the same type found in an empty container in their garage. Every scientific test, every piece of evidence, every burn pattern pointed to the same conclusion. So Deborah Green had deliberately set a fire designed to end her children's lives. Prosecutors pieced together what happened that night. After the explosive phone call with Michael, Deborah snapped. She'd tried to poison him, failed. He was moving out, filing for divorce. She was about to lose everything: her husband, her children, her lifestyle, her identity. The children represented her last connection to the life she was losing. If Michael was going to take them in the divorce, if she was going to be alone anyway, then she'd make sure Michael suffered the worst loss imaginable. If she couldn't have her family, nobody would. She poured accelerant throughout the house, paid special attention to Michael's belongings, made sure to block the children's escape routes, told Timothy to stay inside and wait for help. Then she lit the match. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was calculated revenge. She was a doctor with an IQ over 160. She knew exactly what she was doing. The case against Deborah was overwhelming. Forensic scientists documented everything. The accelerant patterns proved systematic planning. You don't accidentally pour lighter fluid in multiple rooms of your house. The burn marks on her bathrobe and hair proved she was present at ignition, not waking up to find a fire, but there when it started. The ricin antibodies in Michael's blood proved she'd poisoned him multiple times. The receipts for castor beans proved she'd purchased the poison days before his illness began. The timeline of the phone call at midnight and the fire at 12:20 a.m. proved opportunity. Her own statements to police were full of contradictions. The video of her interrogation showed a woman who was too calm, too collected, too practiced in her explanations. November 22nd, 1995. Less than a month after the fire. Deborah was at a Kansas City theater with Kate. Her surviving daughter was rehearsing for The Nutcracker. She was playing Clara, the lead role. 6-year-old Kelly was supposed to have played an angel in the same production. Police arrested Deborah right there at the theater. Took her into custody while Kate watched. Charges: 2 counts of first-degree ending of life, 2 counts of attempted ending of life, 1 for the fire, 1 for the poisoning. Aggravated arson. Bail was set at $3 million, the highest ever required in Johnson County, Kansas history. They weren't taking chances she'd flee or hurt someone else. Deborah's attorneys tried everything. They suggested maybe Timothy had set the fire. A 13-year-old boy somehow poured accelerant throughout the house, lit it, then went upstairs to his own ending. They claimed she was incompetent due to medication and alcohol, that she couldn't have formed the intent necessary for first-degree elimination. They said the fire science was unreliable, that the burn patterns could be explained by other phenomena. But then Deborah's own investigators verified the strength of the forensic evidence. Even her defense team couldn't deny what the science showed. Faced with overwhelming evidence and a potential death sentence, Deborah agreed to an Alford plea. That's where you don't admit guilt, but acknowledge the evidence against you is strong enough for conviction. On May 30th, 1996, She pled no contest to all charges. The judge sentenced her to 2 concurrent 40-year terms. Life in prison without possibility of parole for 40 years. She'd have to serve every single day of 40 years before even being considered for release. Michael Farrar survived the poisoning, but it left lasting damage. He required brain surgery to repair what the ricin had destroyed. He married a lawyer and tried to rebuild his life with Kate. Kate, the surviving daughter, ended up living with her father and his new wife. But here's the complicated part. Kate still believed her mother was innocent, or at least claimed to. Even as a young adult, she attended her mother's appeals hearings and sat with Deborah's supporters, not with her father. Think about what that must have been like for Kate. 10 years old, watching her house burn, losing her brother and sister, her mother arrested, her father damaged, growing up torn between 2 parents, one who cheated and one who eliminated. The 2 children who died never got to grow up. Timothy was 13, just starting to become his own person. Kelly was 6, still believed in Santa Claus and angels, and that her mother would keep her safe. This is where the story gets even more twisted. Deborah Green is still in prison. She's currently incarcerated at Topeka Correctional Facility in Kansas, serving her 40-year sentence. She's now 73 years old, working a prison job, weighing 188 pounds at 5'4" long. Her earliest possible release date is November 2035. She'll be 84 years old if she makes it that long, but here's what makes this case stick with investigators. Deborah has never really taken responsibility. In 2000, just 4 years into her sentence, she filed for a new trial, claimed she was incompetent when she accepted the plea deal because of medications she was taking for mental health issues, said the Prozac made her thinking cloudy, said she was too scared to think clearly. But when prosecutors said they'd seek the death penalty if she got a new trial and was convicted, she withdrew her request. Suddenly, being in prison for 40 years didn't seem so bad compared to the alternative. In 2004, she tried again. This time claiming advances in arson science meant the evidence against her was now obsolete. She hired a Wichita attorney and argued that new fire investigation techniques would prove the fire patterns could have been caused by natural phenomena. District Judge Peter Ruddick rejected that appeal in 2005. The evidence wasn't obsolete. The science was sound. The accelerant patterns were clear. In 2014, Deborah tried a different angle. She filed for resentencing based on a Kansas Supreme Court decision about judges imposing minimum sentences without jury affirmation. Her attorney argued the hard 40 years without parole, should be eliminated from her sentence. On January 22, 2015, Johnson County District Judge Brenda Cameron denied that request too. The judge pointed out that the Supreme Court ruling didn't apply retroactively to Deborah's case. More importantly, Deborah had benefited enormously from her plea agreement. The prosecution had taken the death penalty off the table. She understood exactly what she was agreeing to. The agreement was clear to the defendant, Judge Cameron said. She received the benefit of that bargain. Throughout all these appeals, Deborah has maintained either innocence or incompetence. In letters to author Ann Rule, who wrote the book Bitter Harvest about the case, Deborah claimed everything from having no memory of that night to being completely innocent. She's theorized that Margaret Hacker, Michael's girlfriend, set the fire. She's claimed Timothy poisoned his own father. She's blamed her medications, her alcohol use, her attorneys. Everyone except herself. In one letter from 1997, Deborah wrote, "I find the concept of long-term plans pretty overwhelming still. Right now, my hopes and plans are fairly simple: to see justice done. If justice is done, I'll be out of here. Then I would hope only to be able to spend a fair amount of time with my surviving daughter, Kate. Justice done, as if she's the victim. August 23, 2023. Michael Farrar went at age 68. Media outlets didn't disclose the cause, but those close to the case believe the ricin poisoning left lasting damage that contributed to his relatively early passing. He'd survived his wife's attempts to end him, rebuilt his life, raised Kate. But the poison had taken its toll. Kate Farrar, now 39, 40 years old, has stayed out of the spotlight. Reports indicate she's married and living in Kansas City, Missouri. She apparently maintains relationships with both sides of her family, the Farrars and the Greens. And she still believes her mother is innocent, or at least publicly supports that position. She attended Deborah's 2004 appeal hearing and sat with her mother's supporters, not with her father. Think about the loyalty that takes, the cognitive dissonance, the trauma. Growing up believing your mother, who stood outside while your siblings burned, is innocent. The cultural impact of this case continues. In 1997, true crime writer Ann Rule published Bitter Harvest, A Woman's Rage, A Mother's Sacrifice. The book became a bestseller and remains one of Rule's most haunting works. In 1999, the Forensic Files episode Ultimate Betrayal aired, detailing the investigation and forensic evidence. That episode is still used in criminal justice classes to teach about arson investigation and toxicology. In 2021, Lifetime released A House on Fire, a movie dramatizing Deborah's crimes. The film renewed public interest in the case and introduced a new generation to the story of the doctor who eliminated her own children. In 2024 and 2025, true crime podcasts have revisited the case. The Murderous podcast aired an episode in April 2025 as part of their Mothers Who End series. Forensic Files now updated their coverage in August 2025, confirming Deborah remains incarcerated and has made no recent appeals. The forensic legacy is significant. This case helped establish protocols for detecting ricin poisoning through antibody testing. It demonstrated the importance of analyzing burn patterns to distinguish between accidental fires and arson. It showed how behavioral evidence, like Deborah's unnatural calm, can corroborate physical evidence. Here's what makes this case so chilling. Deborah Green wasn't some uneducated person acting on impulse. She had an IQ over 160. She was a physician who'd spent years saving lives. She knew exactly what ricin does to the human body. She'd studied toxicology. When she fed castor beans to Michael, she knew he'd suffer. She knew it would be slow, painful, and difficult to diagnose. She knew exactly how fire spreads, how accelerants work, how to maximize destruction while creating the appearance of accident. And she knew exactly what she was doing when she told Timothy to stay inside and wait for the fire trucks. She was sending her 13-year-old son to his end. This wasn't insanity. This wasn't incompetence. This was calculated, premeditated elimination of her own children to punish her husband for having an affair and wanting a divorce. Susan Tucker, Carolyn Ham, Debbie Davis, Dr. Helms, Diane Cho. Those were victims of Timothy Spencer. Tragic, senseless losses. But at least Spencer was a stranger, a monster in the dark. Timothy and Kelly Farrar were ended by their mother, the woman who gave birth to them, fed them, read them bedtime stories, the one person in the world they should have been able to trust completely. Kelly was 6. She probably still believed her mother when Deborah told her everything would be okay, still trusted that moms keep you safe. Timothy was 13, old enough to make it downstairs, old enough to escape. But he followed his mother's instructions to go back upstairs and wait, because kids are programmed to obey their parents. and it cost him his life. The betrayal isn't just about ending of life. It's about the violation of the most fundamental human bond. The mother-child relationship is supposed to be sacred, protective, unconditional. Deborah turned it into a weapon. She used her children as instruments of revenge against their father, made them collateral damage in her war against Michael. They became less than human to her, just pieces on a chessboard she was willing to sacrifice. Michael lost 2 children, nearly lost his own life, and lived with the trauma and guilt until his end in 2023. Kate lost her siblings, both her parents, one to prison, one to justifiable distance, and her entire childhood in one night. And for what? Because Michael had an affair? Because he wanted a divorce? Marriages end. People cheat. It's terrible, it's painful, but it's survivable. What Deborah did wasn't survivable. She didn't just end 2 lives. She destroyed every person who loved those children. She traumatized a community. She violated every oath she'd ever taken as a physician. The case stands as a reminder that intelligence doesn't equal wisdom, that education doesn't equal morality, that evil can wear the face of a loving mother and live in a mansion. The most dangerous people aren't always the strangers in dark alleys. Sometimes they're the ones who tuck you in at night. As Deborah sits in her prison cell in Topeka, she's got another decade to think about what she did. She'll be 84 when she's first eligible for parole. By then, Kate will be nearly 50. The children Deborah eliminated would have been in their 30s, possibly with families of their own. Timothy and Kelly never got to graduate high school, never got to fall in love, never got to have careers or children or any of the 1,000 small joys that make up a life. Because their mother decided that if she couldn't be happy, nobody else would be happy either. That's the final truth. Not passion, not insanity, not incompetence, just pure, calculated evil disguised as a woman who seemed to have absolutely everything. The perfect storm of jealousy, narcissism, and revenge. A brilliant mind turned to the darkest possible purpose. A mother who became a monster. And 2 children who paid the ultimate price for trusting the one person who should have protected them above all else.